Hello and welcome to Wisdom and Productivity, the podcast of Dr. Efrain Martinez. I am a principal in search of wisdom, and I have found productivity to be a great tool for success. Today, I have the great and distinguished honor of interviewing Dennis M. Williams Jr., who is a high school principal in Horsham, Pennsylvania. He has spent 25 years in education and 17 of those as a building level principal. At the tender age of 29, he became the first African American male to serve as a building principal in the history of his school district. I came to know about Dennis with his opinion piece called What I Wish I Knew When I Became a Principal. And what an article! Fantastic. And I'm so glad that he took the time to be here with us. Dennis Williams, who are you?
First, good morning. Thank you so much, Dr. Martinez. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I am, as you mentioned, I'm a high school principal in a school district located in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. We are about 25 miles outside of the city of Philadelphia. Um, I'm a passionate leader, passionate about education and the opportunities that it presents when students take advantage of the whole school experience. As a principal, as a high school principal, I realize that we are the bridge from childhood to adulthood and at the high school level, and we help set the course and trajectory for many of our students' post-secondary success. Those are the things that motivate me as a leader. I love the challenge that school leadership provides. And I'm always looking for ways to innovate and think outside of the box to kind of create successful systems and opportunities for students. I'm also the principal of my alma mater, and it makes me proud to have an impact on a building and in a community that I believe had such a profound impact on me.
Wow, principal and the alma mater. That has to be something. Tell us, can you walk us through your professional trajectory up to this point?
Sure. So I began my career as a high school social studies teacher, football coach, track coach, club advisor. Tried to do a little bit of everything, like many new teachers do. Like many administrators, I moved into the next steps in my career of kind of completing additional education and administrative certification because I felt that I was ready for more responsibility and relished the chance to change systems, processes, and protocols beyond just my classroom walls. Right. I also had some amazing mentors along the way who believed in me and pushed me to move into this leadership level, and I'm glad they did. Like I said, I've been a high school principal for the last 17 years. I just completed my doctorate um, and defended my dissertation in November. So to this point, that is my most recent step, and very happy to be where I am and doing some of the things that I'm doing right now.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Tell us, why did you decide to become a social studies teacher and coach?
One, I kind of, in college, I always knew what I wanted to do. Like I didn't go to college undecided, right? Based on the way that I grew up and what I was exposed to, and the people who really kind of took me under their wing and mentored me and kind of made me the man that I am. I knew that I wanted to turn around and do some of that for other students. So I knew going in that I wanted to teach. Um, Always had a passion for history and social studies, and I taught everything from AP level courses to the lowest level courses in social studies, and whether that was economics and American history, world cultures, sociology, psychology, all of those things, and I'm a firm believer that if you can engage and connect with students outside of the classroom, then I think your classroom experience is that much better. So that was the rationale behind getting involved in some of the clubs and activities. I played football in high school, played football in college, so it was kind of natural for me to jump into those roles and give back as well. So full circle, it's been outstanding, and you know um, I just feel like it's a calling to give back to individuals who I think gave back so much to me.
Beautiful. Let me ask you one more follow-up question in terms of Coaching, what have you learned? Maybe there's a coaching figure you would try to emulate, but it's such a pivotal position to guide others,
Yeah,
to be like the shepherd.
yeah.
What should we learn from your experience?
Wow, that's a great question. I'm a firm believer that coaches are natural um, teachers, right? We ask our teachers to take a group of students with diverse needs, diverse experiences, and get them to a point where they can be successful. We do the same exact thing on the field, right, or on the court. We take students of varying abilities. You may have a star, you may have somebody who sits on the bench, right? But your ultimate goal as a coach is to get those individuals to the point where they can collaborate, think critically, work together towards an ultimate goal of being able to put a successful product out on the field or on the court. So those skills of being able um, to lead young men and women and teach them the skills they need to be successful in that sport is really no different than what we're asking our teachers to do in the classroom, right? The content is the sport, right? But how you deliver that content and how you get kids to understand and relate to that content, that's the job of the teacher. And I think coaching absolutely helped me to do that.
Beautiful. Then you become a principal. You have tons of experience, and you write a piece in Edwick titled "What I Wish I Knew When I Became a Principal." So, point blank, what did you wish you knew as a school principal?
It's funny that the whole basis of that article was based on a podcast that I had done with Jill Hanley, who's an unbelievable educational leader. And she asked me a question, and it was like I said, it was a real simple question, and it was, what do you wish you knew before you got into this? And I answered it. You kind of give a cursory answer, but once I finished that, I really started thinking, man, there's a lot of things that I wish I knew before I was a high school principal, or before I got into administration. So I feel like that article was kind of the basis or the realization that our work as as administrators and leaders isn't necessarily something that we're trained for, right? The things that we are asked to do right now in this profession are things that we didn't necessarily get in the classroom, right? They weren't a part of our certification. So I really feel like the importance of connections with other leaders in the field, that's key. I wish I knew how important and how critical that was, and listening and really embracing the thoughts, ideas, and perspectives and experiences of others. I also think that one of the things we often misdiagnose as we enter building level leadership is self care. Right? We're so ramped
Mm,
up to do the work late nights, early morning, pouring so much into the lives of students and staff that we call our school family. That sometimes we forget about the critical importance of taking care of ourselves and our real family. Like that's such an important understanding. So I think those are a couple things that I wish I knew um, prior to stepping into a building level leadership role.
beautiful, and that's a great point that you make about the self care. I remember when I started, I would leave the building at almost at midnight and come back in the morning, and the work was still there. It was still incomplete, right?
Never
What a
disappears. Never
right.
disappears.
What a wrong way to approach it. Thank you so much for sharing that, Dennis. So, like in Back to the Future, if Dennis could go back in time to any of the positions you held in the past, what would the Dennis of today tell the Dennis of back then?
Um, wow, that's a great question. Um, if I can go back to a position, I would say if I could go back and be a teacher, looking at it now from an administrative lens, right? And 17 years of 18 years of 17 as a building level principal, I would tell myself as a teacher, you really don't understand the impact that you have on each and every student in front of your classroom. I think seeing it from that 30,000 foot view as a building level administrator, um, that day to day interaction, that day to day, 45 minutes or 80 minutes that you spend with that child over the course of the year, truly can change that child's life. Um, and I'm not saying that a lot of our teachers don't realize that, But I think we as administrators need to make sure that that is crystal clear. People come in, they do their job, they work their butts off, and sometimes they don't necessarily see the return. I would tell myself, my teacher self, that return is coming. Keep working, keep grinding, keep pouring into kids, keep making a difference day by day, and and the fruits of that labor eventually do come out. That's what I think I'm
Beautiful.
gonna tell myself.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dennis.
Yeah,
So let's talk about books. As you know, reading books is such a luxury.
yeah.
If you have to gift two books to loved ones, a fiction and a non-fiction, which books will those be?
If I had to gift a fiction book, um, I'm not sure if you're familiar with um, the Nick Stone book, Dear Martin.
Dear Martin.
If you have not, I encourage you to check that out. It's a book that I only started reading because one of my high school English teachers was doing it with her class. And it's a story about a young African American male kind of caught between two worlds, right? Private school education, his identity. It really digs into some social justice issues with references to police, interracial relationships, a number of things. Um, it was a series of it's a series of journal entries as if this young man is writing to Dr. Martin Luther King, right?
Oh,
Hence the name Dear Martin. And it was originally written in 2017, but it really started to gain some traction in 2020 after the George Floyd murders that summer. So you can imagine some of the dialogue that occurs with a book like this in a high school setting, right? With teenagers. It's remarkable to hear some of the dialogue, and the teacher actually invited me in to kind of talk through some of those things because I am an African American male who teaches in a school district that is um, significantly fluid. Um, um, our demographics aren't, they've shifted, they've changed, but they aren't drastically diverse, right? So she invited me in to kind of talk through these pieces. And she invited a police officer in to kind of talk through some of that unrest and discussion. So that is a book that I kind of got turned on to a couple of years ago, and it is a fabulous read. There's actually a sequel that just came out called Dear Justice. Um, um, and so I would encourage anybody who's, especially with older students, where you can kind of have that dialogue and really kind of dig into and engage. It really, really, really effective. And you said nonfiction. Um, I think all of us as administrators, we are guilty of reading more journals, right? Educational journals and research specific to some academic trends and supports. Like that's a given for us. Books like Good to Great, Michael Fullen's work, and all those others. But I also enjoy resources that kind of focus on leadership outside of education.
mm,
And one of my all time favorites is Change or Die. That's written by Alan Dushman. Um, a superintendent friend and mentor of mine introduced me to this book about 10 or 12 years ago. It was written in 2007, I believe, 2006, 2007. Um, and it's a book that's focused on change and the reason why change doesn't work. Right?
mm.
And so that really spoke to me because it provides some strategies and some key themes about change in terms of relationship and reframing things. It's an excellent read and a great leadership book. So I would encourage you to check that out too. But those are probably two of my favorites if I think fiction and nonfiction.
I love it. Thank you so much. Question: have you ever thought about changing yourself for the betterment? Can you share with us that journey?
I'm sorry. One more time. You broke up a little bit.
Yes, yes. No, not a problem. Can you share with us if you had any experience with actually changing, improving yourself and your trajectory?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the great things, one of the blessings about starting um, in this profession so young in terms of leadership at 29, I really had mentors who gave me the flexibility to and really kind of the authority to be innovative, right? To think outside of the box. So we've done everything from change and shift our graduation requirements to change our building level schedule, um, to incorporate um, affinity groups so that kids feel a sense of belonging. Um, if you walk into our building, you will certainly be able to tell that our kids connect, right? The celebration, while we are not, as I mentioned, hugely diverse, that diversity is celebrated, and those are things that in this, when you think about how politicized our profession has become, those are some things that aren't necessarily happening everywhere. The flexibility and the ability that I was given to again kind of shift and change the educational experience for kids. Um, that's been a positive thing, and I think it's those kinds of things that keep you invigorated, right? And one of the things that I said in the articles, there's a lot of times where this building leadership role becomes more managerial and less leadership, right? Um, and that's a trap, right? That's a trap. It's easy to check things off as managerial tasks. It's much harder to engage in the leadership tasks. But I think it's those ways that we shift and change the environment for our students, creating a sense of belonging and trying to do things a little bit differently and a little more innovative that keep us growing and keep that leadership piece at the forefront.
Beautiful. Dennis, what is one or two things that you know for a fact that you're doing better as a principal that perhaps when you began you didn't have enough experience to
Yeah.
be doing those things better?
I would say, actually, to me, that's actually simple. As school leaders, our job is to create a pathway and make plans for other people's kids. Right. My job is to ensure that students are prepared once they walk across the stage with me in June, to be successful in whatever they endeavor. Right. That's our job. But I feel like I became a better principal as I watched my own kids navigate school. Right. The things that they dealt with, and were exposed to both in and out of the classroom really kind of provided me with a first row seat of how we can do things differently to prepare students for success. Right. Watching my daughter navigate the stress of honors and AP level classes, and then the social piece, and watching my stepson um, navigate high school, and watching my other stepson, who's an athlete, navigate high school. So it created a variety of different pathways, I think, for me, into this work. And I feel like I became a better school leader as I watched my kids walk this walk.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing about
Yep.
your wisdom. Let me ask you, who is or who are your biggest influences?
Oh, I mean, this will sound cliche. I'm sure many people say this, but my parents are a huge influence. And the reason why I grind the way that I do. I grew up in the city of Philadelphia. Grew up poor. Didn't have close to what other people had, but we never felt that, right. We never wanted for anything. It was important that my brother and I got an education. My mom had an associate's degree. My dad doesn't have a college degree. So they did whatever they could to put us in a position to take advantage of an education and the places that it could take us. Right. Even when my brother and I didn't understand it, nor did we want to. So in terms of an influence, man, it is absolutely my parents, because I would not be in the situation that I am in right now, or my brother, had they not placed such a high priority on getting an education in the places that it could take us. So
Beautiful.
that's an easy one.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
It's w- how blessed you were that you had
yeah.
that influence. Thank you for sharing that. So, all of us at some point believe that we might not be good enough, smart enough, tall enough, attractive enough, blank enough, and psychologists call this imposter syndrome. How does Dennis address imposter syndrome in his life?
That's a great question. Like you said, imposter syndrome can show up a lot in our work, right? Because in our job as building level leader, we're expected to be the expert on most things, right? I would say, at least for me early on, imposter syndrome would creep up as I was observing or supervising a department or content area that was unfamiliar to me, especially at the high school level, right? So I'm a certified social studies teacher. Like I said, in my career, I've taught every level of history, economics, psychology, sociology, whatever. Put me in a social science classroom and I'm fine. But I think early on, as I moved into supervising other departments like English or science or world language, for a while, it becomes interesting dialogue. The AP physics teacher is looking at me like, you're you're giving me feedback. You don't even understand the concept that I'm talking about, or German four. I don't even know what they're saying.
Mhm.
But I think it was a matter of me being very honest with myself that despite me not being a master of the content area, um, I know good instruction. I understand student engagement. I know how students learn, and I know what creates the environments for students to learn successfully. So I think those are some of the things that kind of help um, combat some of that anxiety that I think would come that comes with that real external view of I don't know this stuff. How can I provide feedback, or this isn't one of my specialties? How can I lead people in this way? And I think, like I said, I think it's very easy to fall into that trap. But I think it's a matter of being confident in your leadership style, your leadership toolbox, and how you engage and connect with people, that can ultimately kind of help you get out of that.
Beautiful. Dennis, how would you describe your leadership style? What do you bring into the game?
Um, I believe that I am truly my leadership style. I have the ability to flex in and out of various leadership styles, right? Um, I truly believe that I am able, and I think part of that comes with experience, and also I think it's just my personality. I have the ability to, and again, I don't want this to sound, you know, I believe I have the ability to diagnose what leadership style the situation needs, right? So situational leadership. And I believe that I'm able to, because of my experiences, just because of the way that I operate, the way that people know that I operate, I have the ability to have what I believe is kind of the perfect leadership style for that situation. Whether that is, a directive, which there are times in our profession where we have to be authoritative, right? There is stuff that has to get done from our school board policies that say it needs to get done, to our state code and federal guidelines. But I do believe that there are so many opportunities um, in this profession where both student voice and teacher voice are critical, and it creates an environment where people feel as if they can trust you. They don't mind collaborating. It creates some grace, because there will be times as leaders, listen, we're going to mess up. We're going to do it frequently. But when you've made those connections, when you've created those relationships, people give you grace, right? And I think that's what we need in this world and in this profession, because um, our job is to mold the next generation. That ain't easy work. That's not easy work. So having people on board and being able to move in and out of um, leadership, um, um, making leadership decisions that embrace that, I think that's critical. So for me, I think situational leadership and finding the right leadership framework that fits that particular situation.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Before we continue, let's praise the Teach Better community.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at www.teachbetterpodcastnetwork.com. Now let's get back to the episode.
So, Dennis, let's talk about productivity. As you know, being successful includes being on top of our
Hmm.
stuff calendar, email, organizing ourselves, to-do lists, all that kind of stuff. What should we know about your productivity? What works with you in getting organized and still have a fructiferous life?
Yeah. I'm big into electronic supports. So whether it's my Outlook calendar, task managers, electronic folders, and other applications that help me stay organized. I think those are huge because we are always on the go. Whether that is in building or out building district level meetings and so on. The connection of a cell phone is both a blessing and a curse, right?
Yeah.
It's a blessing and a curse. A blessing in that it allows you to respond when you need to. A curse because people know you can respond whenever you want to. um, but I do believe that I try and respond to people um, within 24 hours. I tell people all the time, if you haven't heard from me in 24, 36 hours, you need to send it again because I didn't get it. And I know there are people some of my colleagues are like, oh man, like you really, but that allows me to stay on top of things, right? Even if that's a matter of walking with a teacher down the hallway and the teacher says to me, hey, can I talk to you? Hey, I'm walking right now. Either you can walk with me or do me a quick favor, shoot me an email to remind me to get in touch with you. Like those are things that I think are very valuable and beneficial for me. I'm big on deadlines, and I am ensuring that things get done long before they're due. Right. So when my superintendent says to me, "Hey, in about 3 weeks, I really want this report," I will start working on that report and put it in my task manager. Hey, I'm 25% done with that. I'm 50% done with that. 75%. And the great thing is that my administrative assistant knows how I operate. So now she also sets up things for me in that manner. So that's been really beneficial. Again, to me, it's kind of I get to breathe a little easier now, right? For the last 2.5 years, I was juggling so much from my building level job and writing a dissertation, doing some consulting thing and some speaking engagements that I really had to make sure that I was on top of things. So um, yeah, so things
Okay.
things are a little crazy, but I do believe that if we can remain and stay organized and use the tools that are out there to allow us to do that, we can certainly stay on top of things.
I see. So let's discuss Outlook for email.
Yes, yeah, yep,
And you said you respond between 24 and 36 hours, right?
yep.
What do you use for a calendar?
I use Outlook Calendar as well. Yep,
Outlook
I use
calendar
my
too.
Outlook Calendar as well. But I use that calendar with different tabs and different things as well. But yeah, my Outlook calendar is there and up to date, and everybody knows that, right? So whether it is my superintendent to the classroom teacher, they know where how things operate and when I'm available, and that's
Okay.
great. That's been beneficial, and also too, Dr. Martinez. I think one of the things we say it all the time, you know, my door is literally always open, like literally. So people know they can stop by, or they can find me in the hallway or do different things. And I think that creates an environment as well. Very rarely do people need to make an appointment with me, and like I said, there are some colleagues who say, wow, that must get crazy. Like, how do you get stuff done? But that 2 to 3 minute conversation with that teacher who just pops in oftentimes can be more valuable than any other conversation you have, right? Because they're coming to you because there's an issue that's happening immediately and they need your attention. Um, and I find, like, while it does slow me down potentially sometimes, I get more energy out of that pop in conversation than if we were to schedule it 4 days from now at 2:30, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's another key part to my organization is not everything is in the calendar. A lot of the dialogue and a lot of the conversations that I have with both students and staff is popping in or finding me in the cafeteria as I'm walking around the building or sitting at a table with kids having a conversation while they're having lunch. It's those things that don't make it to your calendar that can often be just as or even more beneficial.
Beautiful. And you talk about task manager. Not many people talk about task managers. Can you, for the listeners and viewers of the show, can you tell us what a task manager is and how does it facilitate your work?
Sure. So Task Manager, which is also in Outlook and an Outlook calendar, will really kind of can help assign tasks to different people. So if there is a project that my administrative team and I are working through, I will assign them a task, right? By this particular date, this is what I need from you. And you can also send reminders and those things as well. So I use that when I'm communicating to my team about here's some of the things, obviously after we've met face to face, right? But this is a reminder, here's the
Sure.
things that we need to do. But I will also set those for myself. So, superintendent says, hey, listen, Dennis, I need an AP report for the school board meeting that's going to happen next month. I will put that in my task manager, and as I start it and work through it, I'll update that. So, I usually like to set 7 days out as a window, anywhere from 5 to 7 days out. So, if it's due on the 10th, I've set myself a reminder on like the second or third. Hey,
Mm.
this thing's due. So that has been really beneficial for me as well. But again, it's an Outlook product. But there are other things out there that can help you do the same thing. Um, so that's been beneficial.
Okay. What about do you send newsletters to your staff and families? And if so, what is the process of getting that organized? Perhaps you integrate your secretary into this. What should we know or learn?
So I do in terms of communication. I communicate with my staff every single Monday. I call it the WAG, right? WAAG, and it stands for Week at a Glance. Because what I like to do is give them an idea. Okay, listen, I actually do it Sunday night, so they can either see it Sunday night or when they roll into the building on Monday morning. And what that does is it really creates, hey, here's what the week looks like, right? These are the different events, things that are happening, whether it be sporting events, fundraisers, whatever. But also, these are the things that we need to focus on for this week, right? So AP exams are this week. Realize that that's going to be a change in schedule. Here's the schedule. Realize that we're going to have students who aren't necessarily in class because they're testing. Realize that you should be mindful of the homework that you give because kids are taking, like, it's those kinds of things that I think become very beneficial for staff, because there's so much that happens in the day and life of a classroom teacher, managing 3 and 4 and 5 different groups of students, that sometimes that stuff can fall off the tracks. So that communication, I think, is important. I communicate with our families 2 to 3 times a month. I do a newsletter, and I use S'more, which I've found to be very, very beneficial. The templates, I think, are unique. And with that, I do the same thing. I lay out, hey, these are the things that we're working on. These are some of our goals for the community. These are some of the events and activities that you can participate in. These are some of the successes over the last 2 weeks at a time of our students, right? These kids won the state championship. These kids were recognized at the state level for their artwork or for their music. So I think that level of communication keeps our parents involved also. I don't want parents to, and then I also take that newsletter and I put it on our website too, right? So they're
Mm.
getting it through email. They get it in a Blackboard message group. So for our parents who download the application, everything is at their fingertips. I never want parents to be able to say, and again, believe me, it happens, but I never
Of
want them
course.
to say, "Oh, I didn't know that was occurring,"
Mm.
right? Because I try to make sure that they are aware. Family and community engagement is critical, and I think one of the things that we do is we don't give parents access to what we're doing. Um, Again, another thing that I think is very powerful is we want to be a school, not a come to us. Um, you know, we don't only want to communicate with parents with the stuff that we want to share. Right? We need to listen to our parents. I think we need to communicate effectively with our parents, and the school needs to be a place where they have a real clear understanding of what's happening. So I try to keep those things in mind as I'm communicating with our parent groups. And also, too, the other piece is access. Right, a lot of times we will communicate stuff out, not thinking about our community and whether people have access to it. Right, so The S'more newsletter that we send out can be translated into about 50 different languages, right? What good is information when you send it out if there's people in our community who can't read it because they don't speak the language? So it's those kinds of things that are so critical when it comes to access for our school communities.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Is
Yep.
this newsletter something that you do in one sitting or you're working on it throughout the week?
I'm usually working on it. I will set up the template. Once I send one out, I will set up the template for the next one pretty
Uh,
much immediately. And then information that comes in throughout the course of those 2 weeks, I'm dropping in when I have opportunities. So that 2 weeks is really kind of a pure, a fresh look at, okay, here's the next 2 weeks and here's what happened. And then again, like I said, I post that on it and I archive it. So any parent can go to our website and say, "Oh, I missed the newsletter for March 10th," and they can find it right
we
there.
can go.
Yeah,
Okay. What are your thoughts about sharing information via social media vis-a-vis more and those more internal community stuff? What are your
yeah.
thoughts on those?
I think social media is a powerful tool, um, and I think more districts we have also have moved to social media platforms to get information out. Right? It's funny when you talk, and especially I think we use social media based on the audience, right? So our kids aren't on Facebook, right? Right. Facebook is 35 or 40 and up. Our kids are on Instagram. Our kids are on Twitter. Our kids are on Snapchat and those kinds of things. So as a building and as a district, we have accounts for those things, right? One of the biggest ways to communicate for us, I'm not speaking to everybody's community, but ours is probably Twitter and Instagram, right? So we have a high school Instagram page, and we will post pictures of different events, kids in classrooms, learning experiences, and those things. We have thousands and thousands of followers because that's where kids will go to get their information. It's hard enough to get kids to check their emails, right? But when you talk about parents and how our parents actually work, we use the Facebook page or we're using Twitter. So social media is very, very powerful, but it has to be done one with a purpose. Um, but it needs to be done to tell your story, right? What's your story? The beauty of Instagram is the fact that it's pictures, right? So that picture of a kid in a classroom working on a science project with two or three other kids, that tells a story of your learning environment. So I think schools need to use social media that way. We're so scared um, as educators about what social media can be, and that's a healthy fear, right? But there are ways to use it effectively and efficiently to tell the story of what's happening in and around your schools. So yeah, we are a huge proponent of it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Dennis.
Yep.
So, you just completed your doctorate. What lessons did you learn as a doctoral student? And also, what lesson did you learn about writing and finishing a dissertation? What advice do you have for those out there who are considering pursuing a doctoral degree and might need a little bit of inspiration?
Yeah. Um, it is a process. You need to be able to multitask. And again, your question around organization, um, it is such a critical aspect when you've made the decision to complete a doctoral program and write that dissertation. You must remain organized. In addition to my day to day, building level leadership job, I'm the vice president of our state organization, Pennsylvania ASCD. I'm the president of Pennsylvania ASCD starting next year. I'm the president elect right now. I'm the vice president of a family engagement organization. I sit on the board of trustees at my college. So you must organize some of those things. For people who are writing or about to start writing their dissertation, one of the things that I learned that was very valuable is because of my daily work and engaging after hours, like you said, spending so much time at school with different events and so on, I had to find other ways to find time to pour into my research and to pour into my writing. And that time that I found was actually on Sundays. I'm a huge football fan, so Sundays, especially in the fall and in the winter, like those are devoted to football. But what I would do is I would get up at 6:30 on Sunday, and until 11 o'clock, when most of the pregame shows are starting, I would read, I would research, I would write, and you'd be amazed how much you can get accomplished in those 4.5, 5 hours of time. Um, and it truly allowed me to work through my dissertation at a pace um, um, that was really good for me. I finished my dissertation in 16 months.
Wow.
In 16 months, and I think it was because of that dedicated time to be able to, when nobody else is up, right, the rest of the house is asleep, um, to get up on that Sunday morning and really kind of get after it was very beneficial for me. So I think anybody who's in the process or thinking about it, it absolutely can be done. It seems daunting. And the last thing I would say is do something that you're passionate about. Write something that you're passionate about. There are plenty of people who write a dissertation, and by the time they're halfway through, they think like, "I hate this topic. I can't believe I'm doing this." And by then, it's too late, right? So find something that you're passionate about, something that you truly believe in, and I think it makes the writing process that much more um, fruitful.
Beautiful. Thank you for your great
Yep,
advice.
yep.
When Dennis is not being a principal, a board member, a consultant, a speaker, what does Dennis does for fun?
Um, I like to relax and hang out. My wife and I are foodies. Going out to restaurants, travel. I love to travel, and I'm a sports freak, right? So I'm a Philadelphia fan. 4 for 4, all 4 sports. Attending games when I can, and family time. Right, it's a little crazy right now. My daughter just finished her freshman year at the University of Arizona. My
Ooh.
stepson just graduated high school. He's going to be going to RIT, and I have my youngest stepson is a junior in high school. So we got kind of one more in the house, going to different events and different games, but getting out to see them and visiting them. But family is important. So, but finding that downtime to be able to kind of disconnect, unplug, and just kind of be is important. It's hard, and even I struggle with that sometimes. So my wife will call me on it all the time, like, "Hey, put the phone down," you know. But those are the things that I think keep us refreshed, keep us renewed, keep us energized to continue to do this work because this is difficult work, especially now, and um, we need to be ready to do it. And I think part of that readiness is taking some time to just step back um, before you can dig back in again.
Awesome, Dennis. Any last thoughts for the listeners and viewers of the show?
Um, I'd say, yeah, to any current leaders or those who are looking to move into this leadership space, we need you, right? We know about the national shortage in teachers, and that shortage in teachers is leading to a shortage in administrators. But stay committed, stay focused, stay engaged. Um, this profession has shifted people's mindsets in terms of whether or not they want to go into this and do this for the rest of their lives. Um, it's the same thing for school leaders. So it's important that we stay connected. Things like this podcast, having an opportunity to kind of talk to you, learn from you, hear your experiences, share some things, collaborate, um, are things that are refreshing to school leaders. And I think these are things we need to do more of to help us develop alongside others. That's the only thing that's going to keep us going. So I appreciate the work that you're doing and this podcast and the exposure that you create, and some of the tips of the trade, right? Some of the behind the scenes things. How do people lead? Getting to hear that and see that, um, and how intimate and important it is, I think is what's going to keep us going. So thank you for this work. I appreciate it. And to all school leaders out there, again, stay hungry, keep grinding, keep working, and good luck in leadership.
Thank you, Dr. Dennis Williams Jr. Have a fantastic Sunday and enjoy the day with the family.
Thank you. You too. Thanks for having me.
Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to Wisdom and Productivity, the podcast of Dr. Efrain Martinez.
Chulo.
And I love that production. Chill out.